caution. All right, but yeah, this video
Monster Hunter is not a
very
series
good.
known for its gripping narratives. You never boot up a Monster Hunter game to hear a fascinating story or meet compelling characters. You do it because they're fun to play. There's usually some plot details thrown in to string together.
Turn the video up. Oh yeah, turn the volume up. My bad. Boom. How's that? Let me see. Do I also have this at 100%? Also, I just realized. Let me turn that up because the dude is kind of talking softly. Let's see.
Out in the field.
How's that
Most
sound?
of the time,
Better?
these details are extremely thin, although sometimes they have got a bit more weight to them. Regardless, there's probably a small group of players who wouldn't bat an eye if the next game released without a plot at all. Because like I said, that's not the reason you play these games.
Yeah,
but
and that's definitely
abandoning
true.
story elements would be a mistake. In fact, I think the series has already told some pretty interesting
You were talking
stories.
about... Wait, Muggs, you're talking about this creature, right? Like, this is how the creature looks? The Gormagalo or Maglo Gormalaglo. I don't know what his name is. Fucking hell. I don't know what his name is.
In some pretty
You're talking about that
ways.
creature, right?
And they've even managed to do it in a way
That's
that
the armor,
takes full
right?
advantage of the interactive medium they take place in. So let's dive in and talk about the
Gormagala?
best story
Okay,
in a
yeah.
Monster Hunter game.
Is who I made a code out of? Yeah. Because I'm like, because I was like, I watched this video and I
The
was like,
majority
man,
of Monster
this is really
Hunter
good.
plots go like this.
Say the line! A monster's too close to the village again.
It's super simple, but it gives a good enough reason for you to go out and do some hunting. So much so
Yeah.
that it's essentially the driving force.
Actually, hold on. Let me say something too real quick before we continue this video. Notice how he said that. It's a super simple plot. And it's super simple. It's, oh, the monsters are getting too close to the village. Go out and hunt some monsters to protect the village. That is a simple, really simple plot. Why the fuck couldn't a Monster Hunter movie do that? Why the fuck was the military in the movie? Why? What the fuck did they have? Why did they make it an isekai where some military soldiers from the US got isekai'd into the Monster Hunter world? What the fuck were they thinking? You know what I mean? That movie was fucking stupid. It was like, dude, you literally had the blueprint. The blueprint was it wasn't perfect, but the blueprint was better than what the fuck we got. You know what I mean? Like, it's not perfect, but the blueprint was there, and that's all they had to do. That's all I'm going to say about that. Because I just wanted to complain about that. But that's all I'm going to say.
Of every
Let's
story beat
continue.
across all the games. It
Oh,
being
man.
simple doesn't mean it can't be interesting though, which the team at Capcom seemed to understand more and more as the years marched on. In the early days, they realised that one of the easiest ways of elevating this premise was to create some kind of relationship between the hunter and the monster that's threatening them. And so, instead
video
of
games
monsters
do.
existing as some mysterious, looming threat that you don't even see before being sent out to defeat, they started to design rivals. I mean, think about it. These games are all about increasing your skill and power to overcome bigger and badder foes. And what better way to reflect that core gameplay than to have a rival that your hunter has to work hard to overcome? The first Monster Hunter game I played, Freedom Unite, used this concept with Tigrex. The game opens with our hunter being cornered by the wyvern.
I just want to pause again and say this. Also, I felt like World, the rival they gave you for World, I felt was a lot better than the rival they gave you for Rise. Because the rival you have in Rise is Magnamalo, and the rival in World is Nargigante. And I don't know, maybe it's just because World was my first game and everything, but Nargigante was much cooler of a rival, was much more intimidating, much more fun to fight and everything than Magnamalo. Magnamalo just didn't resonate with me as much as Nargigante did. But yeah, I didn't know Magnamalo was a rival. I mean, like, I thought about it, and I was like, after watching this video, I was like, it makes sense. Because Magnamalo is the guy that's there. If you think about it, he's the guy that's always there. You have to fight him. He's like the final boss, technically. You have to fight him. He helps you in the fight against Ibushi and Narwa and everything. He helps you in that fight with the Elder Dragons. You're fighting him and all of that throughout the story mode and everything. He is your rival. Technically, in story mode, he is your rival. In the base game story mode, Magnamalo is your rival. They don't necessarily say it, but he's your rival. Like, if you really think about it, he is your rival of this game. He is the poster boy. He's literally on the cover and everything, you know? So it's like, I thought about it, I was like, yeah, Magnamalo is your rival for this game. Except for he ends up helping you in the final fight against the 2 Elder Dragons. But Magnamalo is your rival, you know?
On a snowy peak, a confrontation that ends very quickly when it flicks us back down to ground level with ease, before letting out a roar signifying its supremacy across the mountain. We're taken to Poke Village to recover, and early on, we're sent back to those mountains to collect some Popo tongues. Sounds like a mission so easy it's boring, right? Well, it gets a bit more racy when that same Tigrex decides that, actually, those tongues you're after belong to it. It's one thing to see a hunter get beat in a cutscene, where you have no control and can only watch passively as you're defeated. It leaves a completely different impression when a story beat like this happens through regular gameplay. You probably won't have crafted even a single piece of gear yet, leaving you to face some very angry jaws in little more than your pajamas. These are not games about running away from danger, but here you have no other choice, and the negative feelings that come with having to do just that stick around in your head until you finally get the chance to get some revenge. And this is a Monster Hunter game, so you know that opportunity is going to come along eventually. That knowledge creates this sense of building anticipation around a hunt that would otherwise be pretty unremarkable. As a result, everything in the story seems like training for that showdown, making it feel more interesting than it otherwise would have been. It's a concept that works pretty well, and I think Capcom felt the same because they took it and dialed it up to 11 for Monster Hunter 4.
That insect glaive user
this time,
died.
The rival monster takes
Guaranteed
the
he
form
fainted.
of Gormagala, which, at the time,
Oh,
had a
man.
design completely alien to everything the series had seen so far. It looks like some mysterious villain, draped in black and dark purple, holding its wings like the cape of some gothic vampire, and it could use those wings to support itself as partial limbs, giving it a previously unseen total of 6 limbs with which it could slap you around with. And while Tigrex came across as somewhat of a passive rival that only attacked when you strayed into its territory, Gormagala is far more active, making the rivalry feel mutual between the two of you. At one point, you're travelling across the sea on a small boat when a storm hits, and in what feels like a deliberate and malicious action, Gore seizes on the opportunity and ambushes you at this vulnerable junction. Later
Basically,
on, it
this
nearly
guy
kills
has
the
black
friend you're
Air
travelling
Forces.
with. And in what I think is a series
That's
first,
all he said.
it slaps your cat, and nearly does much worse before you arrive
Yeah,
and have to
Gore
drive it
Magala.
off again. But this rivalry and story aren't just driven by revenge for these actions. There's a perfectly acceptable reason for wanting Gore removed, because its mere existence is causing chaos in the ecosystem. Monsters threatening the order of the natural world might sound like a familiar theme if you played Monster Hunter World, where the plot is centered on understanding why a usually routine migration has suddenly started too early. But this theme feels better explored in Monster Hunter 4 thanks to how the damage wrought by Gore is actually experienced by the player. Wherever this villain goes, its scales are left behind, which are able to pass on something appropriately named the Frenzy Virus. Any monsters infected with this become extremely aggressive to all life around them, and if enough monsters end up this way, then the delicately balanced ecosystem will be reduced to chaos. But rather than just hearing that this is happening, the player actually has to go out and hunt some of these infected monsters. They have this dark aura surrounding them, and in terms of gameplay they move faster and hit harder than their regular counterparts. While you might be able to hunt a regular Congalala without much mental effort, your first encounter with
I had
one
no idea
infected by
Gore
the
did
Frenzy
that.
Virus
Yeah.
is cause for a far
Oh,
more
you know what? Actually, speaking of which, that's why when like my theory is after watching this video and then seeing how all the apex creatures in Rise are blackish kind of purple like this, I think it has to do like it was a little hint towards, hey, Gore is going to be in the game. Cuz if you look at all the apex creatures, they're harder, they hit harder, they're more aggressive, they rush you down. Even the most passive of creatures will rush you down. Even some of the monsters that usually would run away, the apex version of them does more damage, they're more aggressive. And I'm like, that just sounds like the same thing that Gore does to people. And I was like, oh, are the apex creatures like, you know, affected versions, affected creatures from Gore? And I was like, yeah, you know, it makes sense because they're all the same color as these creatures affected by Gore. And that's why I was like, when I watched this video, And then I thought about it. I was like, oh, was that Gore? Is Gore in the game? And now I know Gore is in the game. So I'm like, oh, it just made me go, huh, is that what that's supposed to be? And it's honestly like, that's kind of, if it is, that's a cool little nod. I like that, Also, watching this video made me want to play Monster Hunter 4. Like, now I want to play Monster Hunter 4, and I found out that a lot of people consider the 4th Monster Hunter game like the best one. So, maybe I might play this in the future, because I do want to play this now. Gore didn't appear until Sumdrick, I believe? Yeah, but I'm saying, like, the hints. Like, I'm saying, like, the Apex creatures was probably hints at what the DLC was going to be, is what I meant, Like, that's why I said that. Because I'm like, it would make sense. It would make sense, because they do look like these creatures, like the affected versions of these creatures. And I'm like, huh. I just looked at it and I was like, huh. Yeah. Let me have my conspiracy theories. It's not as bad as like Alex Jones. Let me have my shit, mugs. Let me have my shit. Nobody's gonna sue me for like 50 million for this. And if they do, I'd just be like, fuck. You sued me for a conspiracy theory on Gore. Shit. This sucks. But yeah. Hopefully nobody's like, well, actually. And it takes me to court. Like, oh, okay. Shit. Well.
More cautious approach. Sometimes you can even directly see the moment a monster is overcome by the virus. You'll be out hunting a seemingly regular monster, and for the first chunk of the fight, all seems just as it should be. Then, for seemingly no reason, your foe collapses to the ground and goes still for a moment. The combat theme stops and is replaced with an ominous tune, before the virus kicks in and they jump back to life, far more dangerous than before. By making the fights you experience more difficult thanks to Gore Magala's antics, the threat it poses to the world feels far more real, which in turn makes the plots and the build-up to stopping it much more interesting. And when you do get the opportunity to hunt Gore and seemingly solve the problem, it has one more trick up its sleeve. Let me ask you this. After being defeated in a Monster Hunter game several times, what do? You probably improve your weapons and armor, then try again, right? Well,
so that's
Gore
what Gore
Magala
status
tries
effects
this
mean?
same approach. After its first real defeat, it mirrors the core gameplay loop by shedding its skin and trying something new. The inky darkness is replaced with golden light, and the same monster that's been your rival the entire game ascends to become Shigaru Magala.
Look
It's
at
still
how cool that
visibly
looks,
Gore, but now it's stronger, more serious, more threatening, and it wants a rematch. It sits waiting for you atop an arena in the heavens, where the two of you will battle one last time to determine the fate of the world. A strong Twist Elder Dragon as the final threat and boss of the game is nothing new in this series, but that's not really what's happening here. Shigaru might technically be classified
Isn't nearly
as a
as
different
cool.
monster,
Damn, that
but
sucks because he looks so
narrative-wise,
cool.
It's still that same Gore Magala you've been fighting throughout this whole journey. Yes, you've probably hunted Gore 20 times to make its armor and weapons, but as far as the game's story is concerned, there's only one. You've beat it once, but now it's back, with more power and a determination to best you one last time. And the great thing is, this storytelling is accomplished by the experiences we have through playing the game. Early on we're weak and struggle to repel Gore whenever it attacks. Later on we have to change the way we approach hunts thanks to the increased danger and difficulty brought on by the
I would
frenzy
love
virus.
to fight that creature.
This all
whatever
culminates
that
to a
is.
final showdown with a monster
It
that
looks like a
sees you
beetle
as a
with a
rival
scorpion
just
tail.
as much as you see it as yours. And all of this never gets in the way of the core gameplay loop of a Monster Hunter game, but damn if it doesn't add so much to the experience of that loop. General discussion suggests that Monster Hunter 4 is a popular candidate for many players' favourite game in the series, and I think this and other story-centric elements like the characters and atmosphere surrounding the journey play a big role. There are more technical reasons too, of course, like the hugely varied roster of monsters, the
Wait,
loop in
what?
all
It
areas
has
of design
75?
thanks to the focus on verticality, and the introduction
Hold on,
of
I
two
wonder
new
how many
fan-favourite
monsters are in
weapons
Rise,
the Insect Glaive
in
and
World
the Charge
then.
Blade. But I think that without the story, the choice of assigning Monster Hunter 4 the award of favourite game would be a bit harder. I hope in the future
Actually, hold on. I wonder real quick, how many fucking monsters are in Rise in World? How many monsters are in Monster Hunter World? Yeah, how many monsters? There are only 31 monsters in World. Wow. All right, how many monsters are in Rise? Okay, there's 71 monsters in Rise. Wow, it does not feel like there's 71 monsters. Does it feel like there's 71 monsters in Rise? Because I feel like I've seen the same fucking monsters that I'm seeing at Master Rank as I have been in, like, low rank. Like, I feel like there are not 71 monsters in Rise. That has to be cap. There's no way. There's no way. That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. Like, right here, look at this. It says, in total, there are 71 monsters in Rise. There's no way. There's no way. That has to be a lie. There's no way. Because there's so little. And then in World, there's only 31 in World. There's only 31 monsters in World. And World felt like it had more monsters than Rise to me. So I'm like, this is shocking to hear that there's only 31 in World, but there's 71 in Rise. That is... I'm honestly kind of astonished. I don't... I don't know how I feel about that, but that is definitely some weird... I don't know, that feels like some weird numbers. Oh, man, let me see. That feels like some weird numbers. Like, I don't know. There's no way. There's no way. Alright, hold on. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40, 41, 42, 43, 44, 45, 46, 47, 48, 49, 50, 51, 52, 53. Wow. 54. Yeah, see, that's fucking cap. There's not 71, but there's only like 50, around like a little over 50. So I'm like, yeah, okay, there's not 71. So I'm like, where the fuck did they get like the extra 14 or 15 creatures from? Where the hell? Unless they're counting the small creatures, I'm like, where the hell did you get the extra, where the hell did you get the extra 15 from? It's like, where the hell did you get that from? It's like, cause there's no way, there's no way. There's no way. That shit does not make sense. There's no way. There's only 50. They must have counted the small creatures too. Cause I'm like, there's no way. That does not make sense. There's no way. Hold on. Yeah, cause I'm just like, there's no way. That shit does not make sense. And I'm just like, I really feel like there was way more monsters in Monster Hunter World. Like, way more than 31. But then it could have been they added a lot of monsters into World, like, after the update. So, that could have been what it was, is they added a lot of monsters in after the initial release. So, maybe they're counting, like, monsters that were out upon release versus monsters that were out after the game had already been out. Which, sure, at that point, okay, yes, I get it. That makes sense then, for there to only be 31 monsters in the world. And I'm like, okay, that makes sense then. I can't be mad at that. That makes sense. But yeah, sure. 71 monsters, sure. But anyway, I guess let me continue. I'm sorry, Mugs. I'm gonna hit play. I'm sorry. I'm gonna hit play. Oh, man.
New entries focus less on the technical details of the plot and more on how they can make us feel. That's the approach that Monster Hunter 4 took. and it did such a good job that I've made a video talking about it 7 years later. And that, to me, means that this is the best story in a Monster Hunter game.
Wow. It's been 7 years since Monster Hunter 4.
So that's it.
Jesus.
I think Monster Hunter 4 has the best story of any
Okay,
Monster
what I
Hunter
missed
game,
nothing. I
and
literally
you can
just hit
close the
play.
video now, right?
You
Well,
didn't miss anything.
Not quite.
He just
I do
said
think
Monster Hunter 4 is
has
the best game.
story contained in a Monster Hunter game, but I don't think it has the best story these games have made, because, as cringy as it might sound at first, the best stories are the ones that we find for ourselves. Gore Magala's story worked so well because the rivalry caused players to actually feel something, and that status of rival was its role as dictated by the game's writing and narrative design. But I'd wager that everyone who's played a Monster Hunter game has their own personal rival, a monster they uniquely remember in some special way. And in most cases, that monster probably wasn't intentionally designed to be that way.
It's funny he mentions that because I definitely feel that. Like, remember how I was saying, like, it felt like they were trying to push Magna Malo as the rival of Rise? I don't give a fuck about Magna Malo. I don't feel like Magna Malo is my rival. I don't consider Magna Malo my rival. That's mostly because I don't want to fight him. I don't like his armor. Unless I want his weapon, which his weapon is really good. I don't really consider Magna Malo my rival, like, and it could just be because I played World first, but I feel like Nargigante was the monster that I gravitated towards, as, like, I looked at it and I said, you're my rival. You are the monster that is the bane of my existence. I looked at Nargigante and I said, you are the monster. If it wasn't Nargigante, it was the Anjanath. I looked at the Anjanath and I looked at Nargigante and I said, you are my rival. You are the bane of my existence. You are the creature that I see as my rival in Monster Hunter. Like, those were the creatures that made me actually try really hard at Monster Hunter. And I'm not gonna lie, playing Rise, I feel kind of lost because Nargigante is not in the game. I feel kind of lost playing the whole game. Like, there's that weird detachment I feel towards Rise because they don't have Nargigante. For me, it was fucking Valtrax beating me once. Yeah. Okay, Valtrax is definitely a monster. Valtrax is a monster. But it's like, yeah, I would probably have to fight Valtrax some more or something, because maybe Valtrax might feel like my rival for this game. But I feel lost as far as that one creature that I have, like, that connection to, that I'm like, I need to beat you. Like, I don't have that right now. Like, I enjoy the game, but there's just that passion. There's just that passion that I'm lacking, that I have with World because it has Nargigante. And because Nargigante was such a central part of World's story, and he kept interfering with you with stuff whenever you were doing story mode missions. He kept interfering every once in a while, and it was like, oh yeah, you again, it gave me that feeling of you and I'm like, I don't have that feeling of you. I don't look at any creature in Rise and go, you like, it's like, yeah, try fighting him alone and with only high rank armor and weapons. Okay, yeah, I'll try doing that. But yeah, that's why I say it's very true what he says, though. Like, every person probably has their own monster that they feel that personal attachment to as their rival. For you, it's Valtrax. For me, it's Nargigante, So, yeah, each person probably has that own personal attachment, to a monster as their rival. But yeah, I guess let's continue.
A specific monster might be remembered for many different reasons. Maybe it was a particularly difficult hunt that you had to really work hard to overcome. Maybe it's the first hunt that made you get why the game was fun. It might even be linked to some kind of challenge you set yourself, like the first monster you recorded a speedrun to. Sometimes you start a game, beat it, and within a few weeks, it's pretty much left your mind entirely. I've played many games that had a far more developed plot than that of any of the Monster Hunter games, but they nevertheless ended up falling into that category of being nothing more than a fleeting experience. But these stories that we can find for ourselves because of what happens during gameplay tend to leave a far more lasting impression. In fact, saying we find the stories maybe isn't the best way of putting it. It's more the stories that happen through play that we ourselves unwittingly are a part of. My best Monster Hunter story was with Freedom Unite. Quests in that game were split into two categories: the village quests, which were designed for solo play, and the guild quests, which were designed for multiplayer. It's a similar structure to Monster Hunter Rise, but the difference is that if you take on a guild or hub quest in Rise as a solo player, the monster's health will be scaled to reflect that. Freedom Unite gave no such mercy. Every monster in the guild quests had their stats set under the assumption that you were hunting it as a group of 4. This meant monster health was far higher than in the solo quest equivalent, leading to hunts that could take a pretty long time to complete. None of my friends were interested in the game, so I had to solo all the guild quests, starting from low rank up to G rank, or at least that was the plan. There was one big roadblock that stood in my way: the 7-star high rank key quest, the Underwater Terror, where you had to hunt a green Plesioth. You needed to clear this quest to unlock the next urgent quest and increase your hunter rank, but for the longest time I just could not beat it. Regular Plesioth is already renowned for being a bit of a pain to hunt, thanks to it spending half the fight swimming around out of reach in lakes and its absurdly janky hitboxes. The worst of these was a hip check move that would deal massive amounts of damage regardless of whether you actually made contact with the monster or not.
It's funny because I feel like
in
a lot
fact,
of monsters
this move
have that
was so
hip check
infamous
now.
that it was canonized in Stories 2 as the move Hyperspace Tackle, where Green Plesioth uses its hip check move to throw a wave of power and bullshit at you from across the arena. Couple these dodgy moves with the health pool scaled for 4 players, and you had one big fish I just could not land. For what felt like months, although it was probably less in reality, I tried everything to bring it down. I crafted new gear and tried out new weapons, but nothing worked, and the challenge started to feel insurmountable. As time passed though, I started to notice that I was getting better. Each attempt started to last for longer and longer as I learned how to avoid fainting so quickly. Eventually, I even timed out the quest. That's an absurd 50 minutes
Honestly,
fighting Green Plesioth,
I love that
and
feeling.
speaks to me playing way too defensively, but still, it meant that if I had enough time, theoretically, I would be able to beat it, and that gave me hope.
Yeah, honestly, I love that feeling of when you know you're adapting much better to the monster and you're getting better because you're surviving more. And I love when you go from that to being able to beat the monster much quicker. And it's just such a nice feeling, you know? Going from that to, oh, now I can beat the monster in like 10 minutes. It's like, whereas at first it took me like 48 minutes. And it's definitely a good feeling going from, I was dying, the monster was killing me in like 6 minutes, to now I survived for 30 minutes. I still didn't beat it, but it's like now I survived for 30 minutes, and then it's like now I can beat it. It took me 48 minutes, but now I beat it. And then it's like, and then you start to just lower that time of being able to beat it, and it's like, I don't know, it's a really gratifying feeling knowing that I was able to do this. Grinding out Crimson Glow Valtrax was so satisfying, even when I almost killed him and choked twice. Yeah. See, it's like, it's one of those things where it's just like, it just feels good. It just feels good, you know? But yeah.
I kept going at it time and time again until eventually, in a moment of shock and awe, the big green bastard flopped on his side, defeated at last. Young me had his jaw wide open for several minutes as I looked at the time limit and saw that I'd managed to finally overcome this roadblock with only a few seconds left in the quest. Green Plesioth has no bearing whatsoever on the plot of Monster Hunter Freedom Unite, but to me, the challenge it gave me and the feeling of finally overcoming my own personal rival is the story I associate with the game all these years later. It's a story that only a game can tell. And while the nature of the gameplay sets up a framework for these sorts of things to happen, the fact that everyone plays these games in their own personal way means that every single one of us has some kind of story completely unique to us that we can tell. And it's exactly that personality and uniqueness that makes these stories so interesting to me. Hearing them be shared creates such a sense of community around a series we enjoy so much, and makes even the most mundane elements feel truly special. I can't get enough of stories like these. and I want to hear yours too. So feel free to tell them in a comment below or make
Great
your own
sword
video
player
or
missing.
whatever. I just really want to hear
Shut
them.
up.
Because at the end of the
Shut
day,
up.
they are the best stories made by
Fuck.
Monster Hunter games.
You fuck. Oh my god. Oh my god. Yeah. But you know, I definitely feel like what he said definitely at the end, it is very true because, you know, hold on. Let me go see what's wrong with my dog. This dude is just like, "Arr." And I'm like, man, why? The whole time. 1 second. Fuck. Okay, I'm back. But yeah, what he said in his video is definitely true, and I feel like, you know, it's for that reason why I think, as far as a media, video games are the best at storytelling, because it puts you in the center of the story, and things that happen can shape your own experience with said story. Like, you know, like watching a Resident Evil movie is cool, but I had a much better experience with Resident Evil when I was playing Resident Evil 1, 2, and 3 versus if I watched, excuse me, the first 3 Resident Evil movies. And why? Because personal things were able to happen in Resident Evil 1, 2, and 3 for me versus watching someone else experience it. It's almost kind of an out of body experience. It takes you out of it, you know? And it's like when they put you in driver's seat, it's you attach yourself, you align yourself more with the story when you're put in the driver's seat. And that's what video games allow you to do as far as storytelling, is they put you in the driver's seat. Whereas with a movie, I'm just watching someone else's story. It's not my story that I'm experiencing. You know? It's a different medium, so it has different strengths versus others. Yes, true. And it's like also with video games, you can tell a more comprehensive story over a longer period of time versus with a movie, you only have 3 hours. You only have 3 hours to tell a good story. Video games, you have 10, 24. Hell, how many hours did I spend in Rise? I spent playing Rise so far. I put 158 hours in a Rise. Even though there's not that much of a story in Rise, I still feel like there is a better story simply because it put me in a driver's seat than a lot of movies that I've watched, you know. And it's just like because, and I feel like I will attach myself to the story of Monster Hunter Rise. I'll probably remember more about the story of Monster Hunter Rise than I will, like, for instance, any Resident Evil movie, any Fast and the Furious movie. Like, if you asked me the plot of, like, Fast and Furious 5, I'd be like, I don't fucking know. But if you asked me, hey, what was the plot of Monster Hunter World, I'd be able to tell you. If you asked me what was the plot of Rise, I'd be able to tell you. If you asked me what's the plot of Soul Calibur, I'd be able to tell you. Hell, what's another one? Let me see. What's another one that I've played? If you ask me to plot the God of War, I can fucking definitely tell you. I can't tell you the plot of any Greek movie, though, that was only 3 hours long based off of Greek mythology. I can't tell you, but I can tell you all of I can tell you all of God of War's plot. I definitely prefer movies and books for stories than games, since I I play games for the interactive element where you discover the story. Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. It's like as far as I go, I guess with like storytelling, I prefer books and then I prefer video games because I like the stories of books because there can be a lot of chapters in books, and with a movie, like I said, movies they're only like 3 hours long. And then that's if like they're a really high budget film with a really good story to tell, like a Lord of the Rings film or a Star Wars film or you know one of the Marvel movies. Then it might be like, okay, it's going to be a 3 hour film, and it might be able to tell more of a story. But even still, then you can only tell so much. You only have so much time to tell a good story. There's going to be a lot of plot holes and stuff. And with books, I feel like there's less of that because you have several chapters. You will have like 100 and something chapters, and that's good. And then with video games, even if there is a lot of plot holes and everything in the story, it's like I still feel more attached. I feel more a part of it than I do movies because it's like I said, it's me in the driver's seat, and you can develop your own personal experience with said story because you are in the driver's seat. But yeah, that's I guess that's just my take on it. Movies are supposed to be more thematic and open to interpretation from the audience. Yeah, true. Like Martin Scorsese said, superhero movies are not cinema. Yeah, true. But I guess that's my take on it. That's my only take on it.